to order. In accordance with the requirements of open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over Lunenburg Public Access Channel later, and it can also be found on the YouTube channel Public Access. I just wanted to address something that was brought up in the FinCom meeting last week that said a gentleman in public comment had made a comment about the school committee and the superintendent in general not making the public aware of the budget and the budget gap. And I'm just going to go over the timeline for the budget that we have been working with. Dr. Burnham presented her initial recommendations at the December 19th school committee meeting. At that time, the school committee was made aware of a large gap in the superintendent's recommended budget. At the time, she was requesting 5.9 budget increase. The school committee was also made aware that Dr. Burnham had not yet spoken to our town manager, Heather Lemieux. We asked that she provide us with an update once she met with town manager. After meeting with the town manager, Dr. Burnham held faculty forums on January 18th and 15th, providing them with information regarding the budget. It was Dr. Burnham's goal to keep her staff informed throughout this process. Dr. Burnham held 2 community forums, one on January 28th from 1:30 to 2:30 at the Eagle House, and the other on January 28th from 6 to 7 at the Lunenburg Middle High School. Both community forums were well publicized in the Ledger, on the school website, and an email sent to parents. Dr. Burnham sent out a district-wide email with another budget update on February 7th. She made herself available to all faculty on Monday, February 11th, to answer questions. The school committee had a budget update during the March 6th meeting. Dr. Burnham and Mr. Cassidy presented the superintendent's proposed budget to the Finance Committee on March 14th. We have been making everyone aware of our budgetary issues since December 19th. We are not hiding anything. We have issues with our budget. And we have been forthcoming with that information to the public and to our faculty and staff. So I just wanted to make sure that that was out there. We have a protocol over there that we will be following. Public comment is 10 minutes in the beginning for agenda items only, and then 10 minutes at the end for anything that you want to bring up. 3-minute per person cap with the 10-minute overall. So with that said, public comment in regard to agenda items. Do you all have copies of the agenda?
No.
Oh, they're over here. Oh, they're up there.
I don't think there's enough for everybody. We'll have to share.
What? Oh, you need more chairs? Yep. Okay. Does anybody have a public comment right now at this time?
If it's regarding the budget,
It's on the agenda.
so I can...
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
Sorry. Where do I come in this form? Sorry.
Over there.
Hi, Jessica Beardmore, French teacher at Lunenburg High School, Lunenburg resident. Just a few comments as you're considering the fluid budget and the programming at the high school. I just want to advocate for French. It's the 5th most spoken language in the world. It's the 2nd most studied language in the world. It's spoken in 53 countries. It's the official language of 29 countries. It's spoken on 5 different continents. Canada is the United States' biggest trading partner. One of the languages, of course, is French, or bilingual country. 60% of the French language population is under the age of 30, which means that language is growing worldwide. It's up 10% since 2014, depending on which which organization you consult, there's some predictions that it could become the most spoken language in the world by 2050. French also is the country which has received the most Nobel Prizes in literature in the world. Paris is the third most visited city in the world, and France is the #1 country of tourism, the #1 tourist destination in the world. Lastly, I think that it's important to consider what's happening around us in terms of languages at different schools. I spent some time online looking at programs of studies around Lunenburg. Tech schools do not offer French. I'll start with a negative. However, every school except Groton, Dunstable, and I just discovered Clinton High School around us offer French. Oakmont actually got rid of French 15 years ago. I actually know the teacher who was let go, wonderful teacher. About 7 years later, the community decided they wanted to do a survey of the community about what languages they wanted in the town. Very much voted for French, and French, I'm proud to say, is flourishing language now at Oakmont, and it is back in the curriculum. I don't know if how I'm doing on time here, but I will just go through Oakmont, North Middlesex Regional High School, Fitchburg High School, Leominster High School, Neshoba Regional High School, Air Shirley Regional High School, Gardner High School, the Bromfield School. They all offer 3 and 4 languages to their students. Thank you.
All right, so
Who are you?
I'm Kyle Weiss, student at Lunenburg High School. My big concern is cutting of advisory. It's so vital, and I don't understand why it's getting cut. Like, teachers pay for the food, they pay for the activities, they put it on. I don't understand how that even is possible to cut, because you're not cutting our day 24 minutes shorter, because that's the alternative that students would want. So that's kind of my question to Dr. Brennan.
This is public comment.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not a discussion.
Okay. And that's all. So, thank you.
Mike Mankin, 26 Cortland Circle. Good evening. Happy Springwell. You all know me. I've been with the school committee for a number of years as the chairman of the school building committee. I appear just as a supporter of the schools, and I'm very concerned about the direction currently that we're looking at with the budget, and that we are eliminating a foreign language and restricting a foreign language in the middle school. I understand budgets are a moving object, and I understand that we're in the midst of looking at also other needs, such as the need for an additional elementary school teacher, which is without a doubt a very large need. I again repeat what I said at a previous meeting, which is I just don't understand how the schools could be held to 2.5% in a year where revenues are up, both on the town side and we hope on the Chapter 70 side. And I would urge that the school committee do everything they can to maximize our position vis-a-vis the town budget in order for us not to sustain cuts which will obviously affect services. I would urge the school committee and the superintendent to, if additional funds become available, to relook at the elimination of French in the school. I think that we've gone through very, very bad years, and I cannot recall us ever losing an entire curriculum line in the midst of a deep recession. So I would urge the school committee to do everything they can, if there are additional funds, to ensure that we can maintain our current curriculum. I'd like to tell people that our per pupil expenditure, which is around $13,000, is below the statewide average of $15,000 per pupil, yet we are ranked very high in the state, and I think we're number 11 or 12 in one of the surveys of schools in Worcester County. School districts in Worcester County. And with that, I've hit 3 minutes, and thank you.
Thank you. have a comment? No? Okay. So we have warrants on the table to approve, and do we have the line item transfer? Nothing. Okay. We have the minutes on the table to approve for March 6th regular session and executive session. Have you all reviewed them? Again, since it was the added? Okay. So I'll take a motion to approve those. If they look corrected.
A motion to approve the most recent meeting minutes as revised today.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Superintendent's report?
So just a few things this evening. There was an emergency school cancellation on March 12th at the primary school only due to a water main break on Massachusetts Avenue. In accordance with state regulation, all schools must attend 180 days of school. So even though the entire district was not canceled, just one school will have to make up the day. So at this point, with one snow day, for the middle high school and Turkey Hill Elementary, the last day of school will be June 13th. That's a Thursday. And the last day of school for the primary school will be Friday, June 14th.
Those are half days, correct?
I need to have some discussion with the LEA.
Okay.
But possibly.
Okay.
Yeah. Alrighty. We have
Have parents been made aware? Has this been announced yet?
Yes.
At the primary school?
Yep. Staff and parents are aware. We're starting a pilot school breakfast program at the middle school. We'll see how that goes, and if it's successful, we'll have the recommendation that we implement it district-wide. We'll start serving breakfast on March 25th. The hope is to, eventually expand to all buildings, as we know that many children start their school day on an empty stomach. The cafeteria will begin serving at 7:45 a.m. and students will have a few options for quick cold breakfast to be eaten in the cafeteria. It will be run similar to the lunch program, where we follow the offer model, not the serve model. So there will be an offering of 4 items, and the students will need to select 3 items. One item will have to be a fruit to have it count as a breakfast. And they'll all be healthy foods as well. The cost for any students on free and reduced, as free and reduced lunch, will be free, and full pay would be $1.50. With the reduction, if you're on a reduced lunch price, it would be 30 cents.
And that's just for middle school students?
We're running a pilot just for the middle school. We'll see how this turns out.
Okay.
It's in some ways similar to the Kylie Care
That's what I
Kits.
wondered, yeah.
So we'll see how that pilot turns out, and what the recommendation might be that comes from that as well. Relative to public school funding, at the urging of the Mass Association of School Superintendents, I will be attending the Joint Committee on Education hearing at the State House this Friday. Many superintendents will testify at this hearing in support of different school finance bills that are before the Senate. And lastly, relative to the primary school principal search, we have made an offer to one of the 3 finalists. The 3 finalists came to the district and spent the better part of a day meeting with students, parents, and staff. I'm going to withhold an announcement on a name at the moment because I'd like to have a firm acceptance of the position before making an announcement. Additionally, it's a professional courtesy not to make an announcement until the candidate has had a chance to inform their current district that they've accepted a position elsewhere. I'm hoping that the latest would be Monday. There will be a formal announcement on the selection of the candidate.
Was that offer made today?
No.
Or recent? Okay.
Student report.
On Friday, March 29th, the primary school is holding their annual Jump Rope for Heart event to raise funds for the American Heart Association at the Lunenburg Primary School gym. This event will be open to students in grades 1 and 2 and will be held after school at 3:20 to 4:15. For children to participate, they must return the form that was sent home with them, completed and signed by March 27th. Also at the primary school, the spring book fair is scheduled for April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. At the elementary school, spring activities started this week, the 3rd week in March, running 5-week sessions ending right before April vacation. They'll be offering volleyball on Tuesdays, 5th grade kickball on Thursdays, board games on Thursdays, yoga on Tuesdays, 3D sculpture on Thursdays, and crafts on Tuesdays. At the high school, the National Honor Society blood drive will be May 1st. Annie Jr., the musical, will be May 10th and 11th. The show begins at 7 p.m. and tickets are $10. And lastly, spring sports have officially started. Tryouts began this week, and teams should begin competing in the next week or two. That is it.
Okay, so on to new business. Soldiers Angels presentation.
So I'm Kyle Weiss again. Basically, we're doing a fundraiser for Soldiers Angels, which is a nonprofit that benefits veterans. It's based in Austin, Texas, and yeah, that's about it. Do you have any questions?
What is the fundraiser?
Well, so the fundraiser, we're going to sell shirts to the high school students and shirts and/or shorts to the athletes to raise money.
And do they have logos on them, or how much are they?
We don't know that yet.
Do they
We
have
don't
to
want
order them, or are you going to have them on hand?
We don't have them yet. We don't have that. We don't have them. I think we might have the shirts in, but I'm not sure what they are.
Do you know if they order the shirts first and then they come in, or there's an order of shirts that people buy from?
They've come in, so like I think they're in the building somewhere. I'm not told before they are.
And so how are you selling these?
We'll be selling them probably during advisory times.
I think I'm part of student council, so I know some more details about this. I think the whole goal is to, one, raise money for the Soldiers Angels organization, but also to rally the sports teams together a bit. We do a cancer night in the fall, and this was kind of supposed to be another like sports night type thing where the teams would hopefully buy these shirts and wear them during their competition that night.
You're not having the answer now?
No, we are doing cancer night too. Yeah, we always do cancer night.
Sounds like this is an addition.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is just another night.
Do the proceeds of this stay with local veterans groups, or do they go to Texas?
They'll go to Soldiers Angels based in Texas, but they help veterans across the country. So most of their events are in Texas, but they have held events down the road in neighboring towns and so forth.
And what percentage do they get of the T-shirt sales?
They will probably, I believe, like I said, we haven't sold any yet, so I believe it's about 50% profit from like purchasing them and printing the logo on them. So it'll probably be about 50% of the sales.
Student council doesn't plan on keeping any money.
Yeah, we don't
No,
plan to
no,
keep
I
money.
mean, how much the T-shirt, usually with the fundraiser, you sell something and then you actually only keep like 40%
Right.
for the cause. So I'm just wondering what percentage that is that's going to go to your Soldiers Angels.
It should be, I believe it should be about 50%, because the shirts, I believe, cost about $8 to print and buy, and then we will sell them probably around 15, but that's yet to be officially determined. And I do know the athletic shirts and shorts, their prices are different and will be priced differently. So I don't know those numbers.
Do you have a target in mind, the goal? Trying to raise X thousand?
No, we don't really have a number. The goal is to sell all of the shirts.
How many shirts do you have?
We ordered 150.
So 150 at 15 each would be, somebody do math. I'm not smarter than our 6th graders, so I know.
Well, it would be
30,000.
Shameless.
250, 22.
It'd be about $30,000.
3,000?
3,000? Okay, sorry.
30 would be great.
30 would be nice.
We would be all over this fundraiser for everything. With the shorts and the T-shirts for the sports teams, they have to buy their own.
They will, but the hope is that the booster clubs in most cases will be able to offset the cost. We don't know for sure if they will be able to, but our hope is that they will.
And, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the shirts aren't just exclusive to sports teams too, so if teachers want to buy them or...
Right, there are some shirts for the sports teams and there are other for anyone else.
Okay.
And the planned start date?
Soon?
Soon?
It's kind of mixed up. We don't have very good organization of it right now.
We're just seeing that there's something lacking there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're kind of just the physical. I don't believe we've had them printed on yet. Eliza, do you know?
No, I don't, they haven't. This is kind of the beginnings of the fundraiser process. We still have a lot of loose ends to tie, for sure, so.
So, can you tell us a little bit about why Soldiers Angels was chosen and what it is that they do to help veterans and their families?
So it was chosen on a vote. We had a variety of options, anything from epilepsy-type organizations to just general, like writing letters to soldiers. But this one was chosen as we felt it would benefit the most possible people. What was the second part of the question?
What is it that soldiers? How is it that they support or assist the
they'll
families
help
and the-
find like jobs and just like food and money.
Okay.
Basically, whatever is needed when it's needed.
Basic living and
Yeah.
job. Well, if I'm going to buy a shirt, I'd like to know where the money's going.
Absolutely.
And it does certainly sound like
There were no local
worthy
agencies in the area that did this type of work?
They're not that we found. There were other fundraisers we could have done that would have been local, but we opted for Soldiers Angels.
So, student council, you did the research individually to look at different possible charitable organizations?
Yeah, so how it starts is it's usually in like January we look at, there's a Google Doc we share and we say, all right, next week you need to put some idea that you think would be a good charity to donate to, and everyone just tries to add an idea if they can. The following week we'll come back and talk about why we think that idea is worth doing. And then usually over the next following week, we'll vote on them online of which idea and select it that way. So it's based on a majority vote.
So a quick search online, it looks like they help the veterans if they're in the hospital, if they're just homeless, when they're deployed, sending them cards and gift encouragements, wounded, family support, and holiday community partners. So they have a whole list of things that they are doing for veterans in our country and around the world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That doesn't require any action from us, does it?
No, it was a discussion item.
Well, I know, but sometimes we have voted to
I know,
vote.
but that one does not. That was approved in the school. Personnel report update.
I'd like to invite Mr. Cassidy up to the table.
Hi, everyone. I shared a report with the superintendent regarding recent retirement and resignations. And some known promotions for our new principals. So we've got 2 teacher retirements
Are
on
they
the record
public?
right now.
Did they make those public?
They've made those public. I have contacted them, so that's why there was a little bit of a delay. I probably owed you this report last time, but I wanted to be sensitive to the employee. But those are our only known retirements at this time for teachers. If others do announce, obviously that's going to impact our budget and provide some extra funds elsewhere. Okay. Any questions? If you don't have any questions, if you could just accept it as a report of progress, that would be great.
Okay. I need a motion. A motion, I'll take a motion to accept the
Well,
report.
this is under discussion too.
Yes.
But this one
It's not an
requires,
action.
this one requires action.
Yes. I know, I see now what you're saying.
Motion to approve
Thank you.
the personnel report
The most
as a
progress.
document in progress.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The superintendent's report of entry findings. We're not going over the whole thing, correct?
No. No.
Yeah, I started reading it right before this meeting.
It's
Yeah,
40
I need
pages.
a lot more time.
Well, it's 40 pages because it's double-spaced and it has some graphics embedded.
So it's behind
I
me?
saw some pictures of some children.
I'll hit some highlights.
Okay,
Yes.
so when we have to move over.
So I'll start by saying that it's been a pleasure for me to engage in this entry process, and I'm happy to be able to present findings to everyone this evening. During the last 9 months, as I've been executing the entry plan, I've been immersing myself in the community. I've had more than 14 forums, more than 24 one-on-one interviews, reviewed 174 online survey responses, reviewed more than 36 district and town documents, analyzed district data available through the Department of Education, including Edwin, DART, and Radar. And I've also attended numerous school and community events, meetings, and activities. It's been an extraordinary opportunity for learning, and it's been busy, as you can tell by the 40 pages. So I don't want to, word by word, provide the entire report.
Is that report online?
After tonight's meeting, it will be on.
Okay.
So I'll start by reminding everybody that I started out the process to gather data, 3 different types of data. We often refer to them as the hear, see, and count types of data. I have already mentioned that I looked at existing data, hard numbers, as well as existing documents. I've made many observations of my own and conducted many interviews as well. So in my entry plan that I presented back in the fall, I said that the goal was for me to understand the current teaching and learning practices, student outcomes in terms of performance and growth, current achievement gaps, and district capacity to use data for continuous improvement, understand the culture of each school, school departments, district and town, establish relationships by building trust and confidence through open, honest, and respectful dialogue and visibility in the community, to develop knowledge and understanding of the district's strengths and challenges, values and expectations, current and future needs from various perspectives. Additionally, I wanted to be able to determine the district's capacity for implementation of the district's strategic plan in terms of the physical plant, financial, human, and instructional resources. As you know, we are in year 2 of implementation of a district strategic plan, and that really has guided the work this year throughout. I referenced the goals in the development of the budget. We discussed the goals of the plan in the context of our leadership meetings as well. There was so much information, it was a challenge to try to figure out how best to organize it because there were many overlaps. But in the entry plan that I presented back in the fall, I told you all that I would report the findings in terms of strengths and challenges, those things we value as a community, areas for improvement, and the way forward with renewed enthusiasm and energy. So we'll hit the highlights on strengths and challenges. So the strengths, the community itself, close-knit community that rallies to support each other. The staff, repeatedly, I've heard that the staff is the greatest strength. They are very dedicated and invested staff. And folks are very proud of the facilities. You've got 2 new school buildings built in the last 15, 16 years. And folks are generally happy that they have access to the facilities. In terms of challenges, and you'll hear some of these things are familiar because I've talked about them in the context of the budget. So meeting the needs of all students, you recall I presented our MCAS data and I indicated where we were underperforming state averages, where the gaps were between our students in the all students group versus our subgroup of students with disabilities. So we know that we are not doing all that we can do to meet the needs of all students. So we've got some work to do there. We know that resources are limited as we've been engaging in the budget process. It's a challenge, and I think it's likely going to remain a challenge given that there's a limited source for tax dollars coming in to run the entire town operation. We've already talked about the fact that there is a growing and changing population here in town. We're seeing enrollment trends increasing, and we're also seeing a shift in the kinds of student profiles in terms of the needs that they need to have us here in school be able to support so that they can be ready to learn. Communication is an area that I think we've worked hard to make some improvements around that, but it's going to remain a focus for us because we want to make sure that we get to a place where we are communicating within the schools, between parents, administration, and teachers, as well as out to the broader community. So we've got some work to do on that front as well. And then climate and culture overall. We know that there have been some challenges in the last several years with reconfiguration of grades located in different schools. It does present a challenge when you're trying to identify yourself as a building and establish the culture that is unique to your building with the fluctuation and movement of grade levels to different buildings. It just presents a challenge. And I think the middle high school, particularly under the new administrators this year, have worked to build a really nice culture within this building. And I know a lot of work's been done over recent years at the Turkey Hill. I think it's been communicated to me that our primary school needs continued support to work towards identifying who they are as a school and establishing their culture and climate. In the broader sense, again, it kind of piggybacks to a strength. That sense of community is clearly established and evident throughout town meetings, etc. So what do we value? Loud and clear, everybody values education. Folks value communication, and they also value this community and the nature of its collaboration, cooperation, and support of each other. What are our areas for improvement? Communication. We definitely will continue to work to make that a more cohesive approach. Actually, working with the leadership in our technology department to develop a communication plan to make sure that we're communicating to parents and community members through as many outlets as possible, delivering the same message. Teaching and learning. We've got some work to do there. We know that some of our practices are maybe not consistent across buildings, district-wide. Again, I'll point back to the MCAS data that we have. We know also that we need some work to update curriculum, and as there's been no curriculum leader in the district for the last 7 years, there's definitely some work to do there. Again, the culture and climate piece, we're going to continue to work with the primary school. We've been working this year, the second half of the year, with a consultant to work to build that culture for their building. We need to continue that work. And additionally, operational efficiencies. That's why a central office secretary position is going to be so critical. But, the longer I'm here, the more I learn what practices and procedures are in place. And again, not consistent district-wide, maybe using manual processes versus digital processes. So we need to kind of dig in a little bit there and find ways that we can make some changes that support more efficient operation. So the way forward. We know that we have a challenge with the growing and changing demographic in town. We know that we need to continue to do work to support all learners, those students with disabilities, those students with social emotional needs. We also need to do some focus work on curriculum, instruction, and assessment. We need to be working with data to drive our decision-making about instruction, how we group students for intervention, if interventions are successful. But we need the curriculum clearly identified first. We need assessments that have been chosen so that we can monitor student performance and progress. So we have some work to do there as well. Instructional technology, you know that that's a piece that is tied directly to the strategic plan. We've made great gains in the district in the last couple of years, moving with a phased implementation of a one-to-one initiative. So currently we have 8 through 12, all with a Chromebook. But I continue to monitor what our staffing needs may need to be relative to supporting devices. Additionally, in that first budget presentation in December, we reported that we had identified a need for someone not in the IT realm, but in the instructional realm with technology expertise. That's a unique position. That's not taking somebody from our tech department and turning them into a teacher coach. So that's another position that we need to keep on our minds for future. And expansion of athletics. And we'll be back probably in 3 meetings maybe, early May, with the recommendation from our AD as to what middle school athletics we might be able to offer next year. So in conclusion, there were questions that I set out to answer. And this is probably the more lengthy part of the document, because I addressed where things overlap. I would suggest that anybody who's interested to find out the deep details of what I've learned, check out the website tomorrow morning and take a read. So what are our next steps? We're going to develop a district strategy for improvement. I mentioned that when I presented the entry plan back in the fall. I just want to be clear, make clear for everybody that that does not mean that we are discarding the strategic plan. That remains. We're going to, in addition to that strategic plan, develop a strategy. So some of the distinctions between the two, the development of a strategic plan is often facilitated by a third party, as it was when you developed the strategic plan here. The development of a strategy is led by the superintendent and the leadership team. A strategic plan identifies initiatives in many areas of district operation. We have 8 goals in the strategic plan. A strategy focuses central office and school efforts on improving the quality of teaching and student learning. A strategic plan takes a broad, incremental approach. Again, many goals, 5-year plan. Whereas a strategy focuses on doing a few things well. A strategic plan includes discrete, often unrelated initiatives, whereas a strategy, those initiatives are integrated. There's overlap, as there was lots of overlap in this report of findings. A strategic plan is rarely revised based on new information. We don't intend to be changing our strategic plan. It's been adopted for a 5-year duration. However, a strategy is continually reconsidered and adapted based on changing information and needs. So, some takeaways. I asked as part of my interview process for folks to tell me, how can I support you in your work as a parent, as a teacher, as a paraprofessional, as a member of a town board, as the town manager? And folks gave me some feedback. I also asked if they had a piece of advice for me. And oftentimes the responses for how can I help you and the pieces of advice, actually there was a lot of overlap in those 2 areas. So the takeaways for me, communication, 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 very, very important, can't have enough, right? So that needs to stay to the forefront. Staying visible is very important to folks. Being accessible is important to folks. And holding everyone to high expectations and providing support so that folks can reach those high expectations. And there were a few pieces of advice that I'm going to keep someplace close so that I can be reminded often. These are direct quotes. Dare to be different. Believe in yourself. Work from the heart. Be bold, be innovative, and find balance. So I'll keep those tucked away in a place where I can remind myself often of the advice that I was given by more than 200 people. Questions about the entry report?
Yes. So you keep talking about...
No, we don't take questions. It's for the committee to ask questions. Tori.
My apologies.
I do have a little question or comment, and I think I know the answer, but you can clarify for public. I'm wondering, since the district has done so well in the 7 years since we've had a curriculum leader, how is that possible? I think I know that a good curriculum leader would have set things in motion that could have carried themselves out for some years, and then in time it starts to, like a taffy in the middle, start to fade away and become very weak. Is that what you're finding?
I would connect it back to another piece that's been reported, and that's the dedication and investment of the staff. I think that it's a great credit. to the work that we have been able to do. I will say, though, that I am familiar with curriculum and instructional practices in other districts currently, and we do have work to do. We do have work to do. And it is work that I can initiate some of the work in the course of the next year, but to really gain some traction and momentum and move the district forward, I'm going to need the support of a curriculum position.
Any other questions from the board?
I haven't had a chance, obviously, to delve into this. Can we add this to the agenda for any further discussion if necessary? For next week, in our next session?
Yep.
I did have a chance today to go through it, though, as I would agree with Jim, not as carefully as I might like to. And there's a lot of details and a lot of connections. And I could see a lot of what I see about town reflected in what you reported out. It was quite obvious that the time was spent investigating how people operate in Lunenburg, as I read through your report. And I think you have a good base from which to move forward.
I will say that I did have some folks read the report before I shared it to give me their perspective as to whether or not I captured the district well. And the feedback was that it had captured the district.
Okay. So I didn't get to look at all of it either. I was in another meeting with Jim when we found that it was on.
I guess it was uploaded this morning, but I don't know if I'm supposed to get notifications from Google.
Oh, it didn't notify you?
I didn't get any notification that it was uploaded.
I didn't see it till not that long
evening.
before this meeting.
Yeah, about an
Okay.
hour.
So I don't know if that's a setting that I have to do.
Let me check with IT on that.
Google folders, I
Yep.
guess.
Okay.
Now that we're using that.
Okay, then. We're going to put that on the next agenda, or one of the April agendas.
Yeah, I would just like to have the opportunity to delve through it a little bit more, and maybe, I can certainly send the questions to Dr. Burnham that I have, but I think it might be helpful to have a broader discussion
More dialogue.
with
Yeah.
the entire committee.
Agreed. School committee goals, we're just going to review those. So we've been working on goals since the end of summer, when we brought on our new leader. We'll review them. Goal number 1 was to increase community awareness of school committee role. The committee will use multimodal communications in order to increase community awareness of the role of the school committee. Increased community awareness will be measured using pre- and post surveys of the community administered in the fall of 2018 and the summer of 2019, and results shared with the community in October of the 2019. Now, did we send out surveys? We have not sent out surveys.
I looked at this and
But I didn't
think we had
remember any
addressed
surveys.
it. I think we need to look at this one again.
Yeah, because we didn't work on that one as much.
No, I think we worked on the other ones much.
The other two, correct?
Yes.
Approach the budget process with impact on teaching and learning as a focus in order to ensure that resources are allocated to achieve highest impact on teaching and learning. The governance team, committee, and superintendent will implement a new transparent approach to budget development for fiscal year 20. The fiscal year 20 budget will, 1, be developed by the district leadership team through a collaborative process. 2, incorporate prioritized requests with justifications. 3, be submitted to the committee by the superintendent. 4, be approved by the committee following an opportunity to ask questions of department and building leadership following the superintendent's budget presentation. So, do you want to go over the actions that we've done for that one?
Sure.
Okay.
So action items included empowering the superintendent to evaluate and prioritize all line items with the leadership team.
Which you've started.
I've started.
Yes.
So we're making good progress. The budget will be presented in a clear manner, allowing all stakeholders to understand what is included in the budget, why it is necessary, and if cuts are needed, exactly what cuts would be made.
Okay, and we started that in December.
Ensure all operational line items are as lean as possible in order to make new requests that impact teaching and learning possible. I would say that we've done that.
Yes, we have.
School committee members will discuss the changes implemented in the FY20 budget process at the conclusion of the process and provide feedback to the superintendent regarding their level of confidence that through this transparent process, resources have been allocated to the highest impact on teaching and learning. And we said that that timeline would be June.
After town meeting.
And last action item, that the school committee would create and administer and analyze a survey of department and building leaders in order to determine the degree to which they feel that the FY20 budget process was collaborative, transparent, and unified the leadership team around a focus on teaching and learning impact.
Okay, and that's also attending this. Right. Okay, so we're making progress on that. Goal 3, develop and adopt operating protocols. In order to increase efficiency of school committee meetings, the committee will draft, implement, revise as needed, and adopt operating protocols by April 2019. We have reviewed the results of the August 16 school committee workshop meeting, and we did that in October.
Yes.
We researched operating protocols of other school committees, and we did that in October. Individual members of the committee will send their recommendations for operating protocols to the superintendent, and we all did that. Draft operating protocols will be compiled by the superintendent and should be shared with the committee, which was done in October and November. Implement draft operating protocols in meetings, November. Committee members will provide input as to their perception of the efficacy of the operating protocols and offer suggestions for revisions after protocols used in no fewer than 2 meetings and no more than 5 meetings. And that was happening from December to now. So now we will be taking suggestions for revisions to our operating protocols, which are back there. They're hanging up right there. So that is for the committee to send in suggestions, changes, anything that you think may improve the working meeting. Okay? Okay, and now back to number 1.
Survey time.
We have to work on a survey then. We did put the role of the school committee on the webpage.
Yeah, did that.
So that people could see it. It's on the school webpage where the school committee is located. So we need to work on a survey.
So
Do we need a workshop?
Yeah, that sounds like a workshop meeting.
Okay. What do we need, dates? Or do you want to send out possible?
Sure, and send out
Okay.
possible dates.
That would be fun.
Okay.
Now the charter review is coming to an end.
Oh, yeah, that. We'll have actually something for more meetings. Okay, so that's an act that will workshop for goal number 1, right? Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now on to action items. The appointment of a school committee negotiation representatives. And that was for negotiations with...
So the secretaries union is entering into negotiations. Typically, as I understand it, past practice has been that there's a member of the school committee that participates as part of that negotiating team for the administration. I would offer as a suggestion that Mr. Cassidy and I could handle that on your behalf and bring you updates in executive session, because I know that you're all busy and it's a challenge sometimes to coordinate and be available for meetings. If that isn't an option that you're interested in, we can choose a member this evening to be part of that team.
Did anyone have an interest in doing that?
I don't mind doing it. I question, my only problem with that is I would not want to send, and perhaps it isn't, I don't know, I'm new at this, but I wouldn't want to send a message to the secretaries that nobody wanted to take the time to meet with them. So I would be more than happy to meet with them, just because I think that they are important to all of us. We all know secretaries on everything. I wouldn't want to send a message that we didn't have time to meet with them.
Yeah, last time, I think we both sat on the...
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
You want to do that this time?
Yeah, we can do
Okay.
that.
Only one.
So do we have to do a motion?
There's always
to appoint?
been...
Typically, no.
Yeah, one person. Yeah, I need to make a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to appoint Carol Ashmo to the negotiating committee for the secretary.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Old business action on school choice for next year. You have new numbers?
So we continue to recommend that we can support 20 choice seats in the freshman class.
The incoming freshmen, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Next year's 9th grade. And for next year's 10th grade, we're recommending 10.
Current class size for, of
It was
the
120.
class of 2020?
It was 129 once they got rid of...
129.
Once some of them went to Monty Tech. I thought...
I knew it was in the
It's about
120.
127, the incoming freshman
The current
class.
freshman
She's
class.
around 126, 127.
Current eighth graders?
Yeah.
Current 8th grade.
127.
And do we know how many are looking at Monty Tech?
There are 26 slots available for Montana. Usually all of those get taken.
Okay. That's pretty... Okay.
But the sophomore class, 2022,
Was...
do you know a number, Mr. McGrath?
I can get it for you, but we didn't.
I knew,
I thought it
120,
was
high
129.
120?
Yeah, 120,
and they
129.
did not take, yes. Yeah.
And we didn't take any choice
Correct.
students?
Correct.
Right,
That is
right, okay. Just trying to get an idea if the
Yep.
suggestion is 10
Okay.
slots.
It would put us somewhere right around 130 if all the slots were to be filled. And we don't know that all the slots would be filled.
Right. Well, if they're currently around 129, then it would put them closer.
140.
Would put
Around
them
The
right.
sophomore class is
Yeah,
that high,
yeah.
130 already?
I will get you the exact number.
They were one of the biggest classes before.
They were high 140s, mid to high
Before-
140s before.
They were
before
147 in the eighth grade, so
Yeah.
it probably went down like 22.
120.
Yeah. It was in last packet.
It was.
Yeah, I'm
Do
looking
not have it
at
at
the
my fingertips.
March 6th packet myself.
Are you looking at it?
I'm looking for, because I remember it was at the town hall. And the school choice recommendation.
What do you got?
The exact number for the sophomore class is 122 currently.
22, okay.
122.
Okay. So if all of them are filled, it will be 132.
Right.
Okay. All right, so you want us to make a motion on opening choice slots?
I will make a motion to open up choice slots and the recommendation, or
In the numbers?
make a motion in the numbers that were recommended by the superintendent. 20 for the freshmen, incoming freshmen, 10 for incoming sophomore.
I would second that.
Are we all in favor?
Just one other question I had, as far as elective offering, there's a high level of confidence that electives for those students, it would be freshman, sophomore, I mean, if we're not opening additional slots on junior or senior, above those students who might move, who are currently here. That's how we've typically done it. There's a high level of confidence that the choice for electives can be maintained.
As with any year, choice students or no, there are going to be more popular classes they're going to fill, and students will have to opt for another elective. I don't see any difference in having the additional students aboard. It was something that we factored in when we were looking at cuts, which is why we did not recommend other staffing cuts. because it would have had an impact on our capacity to offer electives. And as an example, let's say in the science department, if we had made a reduction of one teacher, we would have been able to deliver all of the core academics, but we would not be able to offer the electives that we currently offer. And if you think about electives being half-year courses, many of them, not all of them, 20 students in a class, 5 classes the teacher would teach a day. That's 100 students per semester. That would have had a significant impact. So we were mindful throughout the whole budget process that preserving electives was something that we were making conscious decisions to keep that available to students.
Okay, I need a motion again. I need a motion.
Well, I'm not amending the motion.
No.
And it was seconded.
I know, but then when...
That was discussion.
Okay, so we're going to make the motion again.
I'm repeating the make
So then
motion
we'll
again,
just vote it. We'll just vote on it.
Yeah.
Motion's been made.
Okay.
And it's been seconded, we've discussed it.
All in
Now
favor?
you want to make the vote? Now you
All
want
in
to vote,
favor.
right?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Wendy? Are you in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the third reading, transportation bid.
Again, I'd ask Mr. Cassidy to come up to the table.
I shared a report with the superintendent regarding the bid that, school transportation bid that was presented to the school committee in January. There's a lot of detailed information on what I did as far as posting it and advertising. That is just to demonstrate that we followed Chapter 30B. That's why that's in there. So as much effort as we went through and advertised this as much as possible, we only did get one vendor that submitted a bid, and that's our current vendor, D-Bus Service out of Shirley, Mass. The general transportation contract for daily transportation services is going up 3.45% next year. The following year it's at 2.75%. And then the third and final year is a 4% increase. Just looking at some of the other districts that are going through transportation, the proposal that Lunenburg got is pretty fair, and in my opinion is average to below average to some of the other communities that have recently put out a transportation bid. There's another line for transportation for field trips and athletic events and for band, and that amount's very high. Now that's assuming that we can't reduce any of our transportation as far as teams go. Every team goes to the state finals, so it's just really building up the biggest possibility in the usage of transportation costs possible. I did reference on page 2 that our transportation expense in FY17 for field trips and athletic events was $105,000, and then in FY18 it was about $80,000.
So you don't anticipate it's going to be that $600,000?
I don't anticipate it to be, but I can almost guarantee you that it's not going to be that much.
So we're looking at, over a 3-year period for transportation, general transportation, an increase of about $100,000.
Yeah.
A little less.
So, but what you have before you is we're looking for authorization to execute a contract with the vendor. So we'll draft a contract, and I believe the vendor signs it first, and then we'll bring it to the school committee for a signature.
So how did they come up with this transportation for field trips, athletic events, and figure each year?
I can give you the numbers.
Especially if our current.
If the current ones were so much lower, how come they came with
Right,
$600,000?
Yeah, next year, if we were hitting $80,531 in fiscal year 18,
Yeah.
they're estimating 19 at $576,000.
It was the bid sheet is the same bid sheet that we used last time. So it's, for example, where the bid sheet is estimating over 5,000 miles of transportation for athletic events. I know, because I've had conversations with the athletic director, he's doing everything he can to manage, to get as many kids in buses to reduce that time, reduce the buses as possible, and reduce the wait time. So those little things bring that down. Now, in the event that every single team needs a bus for every single event, that cost is going to go up. But we make efforts to reduce that quantity.
So that's like true worst case scenario. If we did the over 5,000 miles and we didn't work anything out, that's like...
That'd be it.
So all of our teams,
Amazing.
if I heard you correctly, right, if all of our teams went to the championships and all that stuff, this is what kind of worst case scenario. Worst case scenario of
And
the best
every bus needs to be
situation.
taken
Yeah.
for every
Right.
trip leading up to and including state.
What's the wait time they add then?
The wait time?
Yeah.
So
I know, what is it like before they pick up the team, after they, I know when they sit around. So what is their average wait time that they included in there?
It's budgeted at about 4 hours per wait time. Now, some events aren't 4 hours. If we're going locally for a game, it may be 3 hours. If we're going down to Roxbury for the Reggie Lewis Center, it's going to be more than 4 hours of wait time. So it's just building in that cost over and above the mileage.
I have no doubt that it's reasonable within the industry in the area. I'm just stuck on this guidance that we're getting of 2.5% for the overall budget and seeing these line items of 4%, 6% increases over the next 3 years. And then
Just for
transportation, not even talking about the staffing increases that we have to deal with. But and just trying to figure out how, I guess this is falling on the superintendent and leadership team, guys, how we're going to accomplish these kinds of numbers going forward when we know that our guidance is generally going to be below these percentages, right? And this is just a line item.
Question. I remember in the last bus contract negotiation, I feel like it was significantly higher, the increase. I remember it was kind of a staggering increase. Do you know what that was?
What percentage?
I don't know that. I could get that to you.
From a percentage standpoint, sounds like it's more in line. The last time, I feel like that was higher, but regardless, yes. In looking at how to streamline budget, this doesn't...
So I guess the other question I would have then, because this is one line item in an overall budget of $27 million, is what percentage of this, of that overall budget is the transportation?
In a breakdown.
Do we have that information so that we can at least start looking at, in the overall budget, it's a 0.5% increase perhaps. That kind of might put some clarity around these numbers in terms of the broader picture.
Okay, I just want to be clear. I want to get that information here, just so you feel comfortable with your decision, but I just want, can you just be, just to say exactly what you're...
Right, so transportation is X percentage of the overall budget.
The school budget.
The overall school budget.
And what is the percentage of an increase in the school budget for this line item?
Right. So if we increase that line item by
By this amount.
by
Right.
200,000, for example,
How much of
over
our-
the two,
of our
how much is
increase?
the overall budget
Yeah.
going to be impacted? And we may find that it's going to be a fraction of a percent. I'm looking at what's this number? 1.4 million in 2022,
From 1.2.
right?
and-
And 1.3, we'll say, for fiscal 19. So,
So I want to talk about sources of funding. So that the reason why I highlighted that general education line item is that annual amount is what you'll see in the budget every single year. As
Just
long
the
as that
general.
student population remains the same.
just the general?
The general education,
Okay.
transportation. So that will, that is what you're going to see in the budget every single year.
Right.
A portion of the other line, you've got the transportation, which you'll see in the local budget, and you'll see the athletic transportation in the local budget. For the most part, anything above that, but the money that's in the local budget is supported by athletic fees. So a portion of the local budget will pay for some of it, like the band
Right.
and athletics, and then the additional will come out of the activity fees. So I'll dig a little deeper as far as, if Turkey Hill does 3 or 4 field trips during the year, and I don't know what they how many they have at the year, and they collect fees. That goes into their student activity account, and that pays for the transportation.
Right.
So it's more of those revenues offset the costs.
So-
That does not hit the local budget like in the money that the town and the state gives us.
But it doesn't cover all of the costs of those programs. The athletic fee doesn't cover all of the transportation costs for the athletic events.
Yes, it will.
I've been hearing for the last several months that the athletic
For
fee does not
transportation
cover
costs?
transportation. It covers a portion of it. It helps pay for the transportation costs, but it doesn't cover the full cost of the trips.
Okay.
So at least that's what I've been hearing.
Okay.
I heard that from both athletic directors in the time that I've been on the athletic advisory. So, but that is a good point, that some of those additional things, they are subsidized by the student activity fees and the athletic fees. So.
And the other question I raise is, we don't have any other bids.
No, we don't.
No, we
don't
don't.
have any other
We don't,
bids. This is our
but
bid.
I mean, if we were to say no, what's our recourse?
true. But at the same time,
Go
I
out to
think
bid again,
we still need to be aware of what this is going to look like in 3 years. When
Right.
Absolutely.
likely some of us won't be on this committee.
It's been multiple negotiations,
Yeah.
so you're going back 3 years to, since we've had more than D bidding us.
And that's the only
Last time it was D.
bus
D.
I'm aware of seeing that many, yeah.
Okay, so
So,
the action that we need to take for this is
Approve or deny,
approve,
right?
yeah, so that they can work on the agreement. So I will take a motion.
Well, I can
So I'll
move,
jump in.
yeah, well, I'll jump in there. I will move to approve the school bus transportation bid as presented this evening.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye. And I'd still be interested in knowing some of those details.
Oh, I am too. Will you get those to us?
yeah, Ms. Lovick, I'll get that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, third reading.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. 5402 and 5406.
I believe we actually need to read those, right?
Yeah. So who's going to?
I would love to.
Okay.
So this is our final reading of two policies. Anti-bullying and harassment policy, 5400, section student conduct, and it's specifically policy 5402, student harassment. It is the policy of the Lunenburg Public Schools that all of its students have an education work setting that is safe, secure, and free from harassment and bullying of any kind. The district will not tolerate harassment or bullying of any type. Conduct that constitutes harassment and bullying as defined herein is prohibited. This policy applies to student behavior, but all students, staff members, guests, and contractors are protected. Definitions. 1A. Aggressor is a student or member of the school staff who engages in bullying, cyberbullying, or retaliation toward a student. Definition 1B. Harassment. Harassment means any threatening, insulting, or dehumanizing gesture, use of data or computer software, or written, verbal, or physical conduct which is derogatory to a person and designed to demean, intimidate, or have the effect of substantially interfering with an individual's school work performance. Such action may occur on the basis of race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, sex, socioeconomic status, homelessness, academic status, gender, gender identity or expression, physical appearance, or sensory disability, or by association with a person who has or is perceived to have one or more of these characteristics, or for any other reason. Definition 1C, sexual harassment. Sexual harassment means unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other inappropriate verbal, written, electronically transmitted, or physical conduct of a sexual nature, including but not limited to unwelcome comments, touching, written notes, pictures, cartoons, or other inappropriate contact such as leering, whistling, brushing up against the body, and/or commenting on sexual activity or body parts. Harassment has the effect of creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work or learning environment that takes place under any of the following circumstances. When submission to a conduct is made, explicitly or implicitly, a term or condition of employment, instruction, or participation in school activities or programs. When submission to or rejection of such conduct by an individual is used by the offender as the basis for making personal or academic decisions affecting the individual subjected to sexual advances. When such conduct has the effect of unreasonably interfering with the individual's work, attendance at school, or participation in academic or extracurricular curricular activities, or when such conduct has the effect of creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work or learning environment. Definition 1D, bullying. Bullying is defined as the repeated use by one or more students or member of a school staff of a written, verbal, or electronic expression or a physical act or gesture of any combination thereof directed at a victim that causes physical or emotional harm to the target or damage to the target's property, places the target in reasonable fear of harm or of damage to his or her property, creates a hostile environment at school for the target, infringes on the rights of the target at school, or materially and substantially disrupts the education process or orderly operation of a school. Bullying includes direct behaviors like taunting, stealing, threatening, and unwanted physical contact. Bullying also includes indirect behaviors like deliberate exclusion, lying about someone, and spreading rumors. Bullying is a form of harassment. Definition 1E, cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is defined as the use of the internet, cell phones, or other electronic devices to send, post, or text messages and/or images and material intended to hurt or embarrass another person. This may include, but it is not limited to, continuing to send email to someone who has said they want no further contact with the sender, sending or posting threats, sexual remarks, or pejorative labels, i.e. hate speech, ganging up on targets by making them the subject of ridicule in online forums, and posting false statements as fact intended to humiliate the target. Disclosure of personal data such as target's real name, address, or school on websites or forums, posing as the identity of the target for the purpose of publishing material in their name that defames or ridicules them, sending threatening and harassing text, instant messages, or emails to the targets, and posting or sending rumors, gossip, to instigate others to dislike and gang up on the target, which is determined to have a material and substantial interference with school activities or with rights of students and teachers. Cyberbullying shall include the distribution by any electronic means of communication to more than one person or posting of material on an electronic medium accessed by one or more persons if the distribution or posting creates any of the conditions enumerated in clauses 1 to 5, inclusive of the definition of bullying. Cyberbullying is a form of bullying. Definition 1F, hazing. Hazing is any conduct or method of initiation into any student organization, whether on public or private property, which willfully or recklessly endangers the physical or mental health of any student or other person. Such conduct shall include, but it is not limited to, whipping, beating, branding, forced calisthenics, exposure to the weather, forced consumption of any food, liquor, beverage, drug, or other substance, or any other brutal treatment or forced physical activity which is likely to adversely affect the health or safety of any student or person, or which subjects any student or person to extreme mental illness, including extended deprivation of basic necessities, i.e. sleep, food, or extended isolation. 1G, hostile environment, defined by Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 30, is a situation in which bullying causes the school environment to be permeated with intimidation, ridicule, or insult that is sufficiently severe or pervasive to alter the condition of a student's education. Definition 1H, retaliation, is any form of intimidation, reprisal, or harassment directed against a student who reports bullying, provides information during an investigation of bullying, or witnesses or has reliable information about bullying. Definition 1I, school staff includes but is not limited to educators, administrators, counselors, school nurses, cafeteria workers, custodians, bus drivers, athletic coaches, advisors to extracurricular activities, support staff, or paraprofessionals. Section 1J, target, is a student against whom harassment, sexual harassment, bullying, cyberbullying, or retaliation has been perpetrated. Section 2, expectations. Every district student has the right to travel to and from school on buses, participate in academic classes and vocational programs, walk the corridors and stairwells, have lunch in the cafeteria, participate in sports, clubs, activities, and school functions, make friendships, express individuality, and enjoy a sense of belonging. Leave past mistakes behind and achieve greater success and confidence. You have the right to do all of these things in safety, free from harassment, sexual harassment, bullying, intimidation, or humiliation. Certain students may be more vulnerable targets of bullying, harassment, or teasing based on actual or perceived characteristics, including race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, sex, socioeconomic status, homelessness, academic status, gender, gender identity or expression, physical appearance or sensory disability, or by association with a person who has or is perceived to have one or more of these characteristics. Each school in the district will create a safe, supportive environment for vulnerable populations in the school community and provide all students with skills, knowledge, and strategies to prevent or respond to bullying, harassment, or teasing. District employees and guests are similarly entitled to a safe and secure environment where they are treated with civility and respect. Under Mass General Law, harassment or bullying of any student or employee is prohibited on school grounds and property immediately adjacent to school grounds, at a school-sponsored or school-related activities, functions, or programs, whether on or off school grounds, at a bus stop, or on a school bus, or any other vehicle owned, leased, or used by the district. Through the use of technology or an electronic device owned, leased, or used by the district. At a location, activity, function, or program that is non-school related, or through the use of technology or an electronic device that is not owned, leased, or used by the district, if the harassment or bullying creates a hostile environment at school for the target, infringes on the rights of the target at school, or materially or substantially disrupts the education process or the orderly operation of a school. Section 3, consequences. Every complaint of harassment will result in an investigation of the circumstances and an interview of the offending person. Harassing behavior will be stopped. If a complaint is found to be deliberately false, there will be disciplinary consequences. If there is a pattern of deliberately false complaints levied against the same individual, it may be deemed as an act of bullying or harassment. Consequences and appropriate interventions for students who commit an act of bullying or harassment will result in, but will not be limited to, disciplinary consequences that could include counseling, loss of school privileges, detention, Saturday school, suspension or expulsion, and/or notification of the police. Consequences and appropriate interventions for an employee found to have committed an act of bullying or harassment will be instituted in accordance with district policies, procedures, and agreements. Consequences and appropriate intervention for a visitor or volunteer found to have committed an act of bullying or harassment shall be determined by the superintendent after consideration of the nature and circumstances of the act, including reports to appropriate law enforcement officials. Section 4, reporting of an act of bullying or harassment. A, the building principal is responsible for receiving oral and/or written complaints alleging violations of this policy. If a reported bullying incident involves the principal or assistant principal as the alleged aggressor, the superintendent or designee shall be responsible for investigating the report and other steps necessary to implementation of the plan, including addressing the safety of the alleged target. If the superintendent is the alleged aggressor, the school committee chair shall be responsible for investigating the report and/or other steps necessary to implement the plan, including addressing the safety of the alleged target. 4B, all employees are required and must report in writing any instance of bullying or retaliation the staff member has witnessed or be aware of to the principal or school official identified as responsible for receiving such reports, or both. Failure to report will result in actions, or discipline up to and including termination of employment. Section 4C, any other member of the school committee with credible information that an act of bullying or harassment has taken place is encouraged to file a report, whether a target or a witness. Section 4D, any student or parent, guardian, on the student's behalf who believes he or she is a target of bullying or harassment is strongly encouraged to report and/or discuss the incident with an adult, teacher, counselor, nurse, administrator. Complaints may be filed anonymously. However, no disciplinary action shall be taken against a student solely on the basis of an anonymous report. Section 4F, complaints should be filed as soon as possible after the alleged incident or incidents. Failure to report incidents of harassment in a timely manner may have an adverse impact on the school's ability to conduct a meaningful investigation. Section 5, investigation and resolution. Every complaint of harassment will result in an investigation of the circumstances and an interview of the offending persons. In situations involving students, parents will be informed of the situation and invited to participate in resolution discussions. Failure to participate in an investigation and/or resolution meeting will result in appropriate discipline. The principal or designee will make a determination based upon all of the facts and circumstances. If, after investigation, bullying or harassment is substantiated, the principal or designee will take steps reasonably calculated to prevent recurrence and to ensure that the target is not restricted in participating in school or in benefiting from school activities. Referral to law enforcement will be considered based on the circumstances. Regardless of the outcome of the bullying, determination, any parents wishing to file a claim or concern or seeking assistance outside the district may do so with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Program Resolution System, PRS. That information can be found at www.doe.mass.edu/PQA. Emails can be sent to compliance@doe.mass.edu, or individuals can call 781-338-3700. Hard copies of this information is also available in the superintendent's office. All attempts will be made to resolve the situation as confidentially and quickly as circumstances permit. Harassing behavior will be stopped. Section 6, retaliation. Retaliation in any form against any person who has made or filed a complaint relating to harassment is forbidden. Individuals accused of harassment or involved in an investigation will be warned that there can be no discussion or the incident and no retaliation against a student or employee who makes a complaint. If retaliation occurs, it could be considered grounds for dismissal of personnel and/or removal from the educational setting for a student. A referral to law enforcement can be made. Section 7, confidentiality. To the extent possible, all reports of harassment will be kept confidential, consistent with necessary investigation procedures, and with the goal of protecting the target and stopping the behavior. For further information about these guidelines, help with sexual harassment problems, or any other form of harassment, contact the Office of the Superintendent. If the principal or the assistant principal is the alleged aggressor, the report is made to the superintendent, who is responsible for the investigation. If the alleged aggressor is the superintendent, the report is made to the chair of the school committee, who will investigate. Cross-references, student handbook, and bullying prevention and intervention plan. Legal references, Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, Section 703, Title IX of the 1972 U.S. Civil Rights Act, Chapter 151C, Mass General Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 76, Section 5, Mass General Law, Chapter 269, Section 17, 18, 19, and Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 31H, 37H, 37O, 82, and 84.
But you wouldn't have read that one if you knew how long it was, if you remembered.
I know it was long, I don't remember it was that long.
Oh, the next one is not quite as long. So the next one is 5406, and it is entitled Students and Instruction, Endangering Health and Safety, Interrogation, Search, and Seizure Policies. Jim, this is yours.
This is mine.
This is yours.
Endangering the, okay, so section 5406, endangering health and safety, interrogation, search and seizure policy. Endangering the health and safety of a student and/or other members of the school community is a violation of state law. The superintendent, principal, or other designated administrator may authorize a personal search of a student's property, a classroom, or an automobile if there is a reasonable suspicion that health and safety are at risk or that a student has violated or is violating school rules or federal state laws. Should a student decline to be searched or refuse an administrator access to his or her property, the parent or guardian will be notified, and when appropriate, the police will be contacted. Searches of students, their possessions, lockers, and student automobiles will be conducted in a way conducive both to the preservation of individual rights and to an atmosphere supportive of the educational process. If at any time during the search process a designated administrator feels a threat is imminent to any student or other personnel, the police will be contacted. Whenever a student search is conducted, the following shall apply. 1. No search shall be conducted unless there is a reasonable suspicion that a violation of law or school rules has occurred, or there is a reasonable suspicion that a student's or school community's health and safety may be in jeopardy. 2. Searches shall be conducted by an administrator in the presence of at least one other staff member. 3. Whenever a personal search is deemed necessary, the student shall be advised of the reason for the impending search prior to its implementation. School officials may examine articles of clothing such as pockets, coats, book bags, etc. 4. In recognition, the right to privacy considerations intensify as the search becomes invasive. No school official shall ever conduct a strip search of a student. 5. Should a student refuse to voluntarily comply with a request for such a search, the student may be detained until parents and, if necessary, police can arrive at the school to assist as appropriate in the investigation. A student who fails to cooperate, lies, misleads, or threatens any person during or after a search or questioning may be subject to additional disciplinary action. 6. Should a search uncover any unlawful substances or contraband, such shall be turned over to the appropriate authorities or rightful owner as appropriate, and suitable disciplinary action shall be taken. Nothing herein shall be construed to limit the right of the school committee or administration to make use of external protecting resources should these become necessary or desirable. As part of this policy, the Lunenburg School Committee approves the use of random searches throughout the school year. Canine search of property. Illegal drug possession and use by school-aged children is a dangerous and persistent problem nationwide. The Lunenburg Public Schools remain vigilant at all times to prevent illegal drugs from entering our schools and follow strict enforcement of anti-drug rules to protect the health and safety of all students and faculty. The school district's primary goal is to deter students from using or bringing drugs or other unlawful or unauthorized items into the school, not to subject students to arrest or school discipline. To that end, the superintendent, principal, or other designated administrator may authorize unannounced canine patrols of school lockers or automobiles in school parking lots when he or she deems it advisable to maintain school safety or if there is a reasonable suspicion that drugs or weapons will be found. During these visits, the canines will pass by students' lockers and automobiles and will alert their handlers if they detect the presence of a prohibited substance. Should this occur, there exists probable cause for a search to be conducted, and a designated school official will conduct a thorough search of the item or area targeted by the dog. At all times, canine units will be under the direction and control of the law enforcement officials, and whenever possible, canine patrol shall be scheduled to minimize disruption of the academic day and the risk of contact with students. All lockers and randomly selected offices and classrooms will be subject to search. Lockers in school premises are school property, and there is no reasonable expectation for privacy in those areas. In addition, all automobiles parked on school property will be subject to search. Students who choose to bring vehicles to school and are granted the privilege to park on school property do so with the understanding that they relinquish the expectation that the contents of their vehicles will remain private. In the event that drugs, weapons, or other unlawful or unauthorized items are found, parents will be notified and appropriate authorities may be notified. All decisions concerning school discipline and police referral will be made by the principal or designated administrator using existing school procedures. Canine patrols, searches conducted by law enforcement officials shall be in addition to any administrative or health and safety searches conducted by school officials. Interrogations by police. The schools have legal custody of students during the school day and during hours of approved extracurricular activities. It is the responsibility of the school administration to make an effort to protect each student's rights with respect to interrogations by law enforcement officials. Therefore, 1, when a law enforcement official finds it necessary to question students during the school day or periods of extracurricular activities, the school principal or his or her designee will be present when possible. An effort will be made to contact the student's parent or guardian so that the responsible individual may be notified of the situation. 2, if custody and/or arrest are involved, the principal will request that all procedural safeguards as prescribed by law be observed by the law enforcement officials. And that is it.
Thank you. Did we have any, no comments? No email? Okay. Since that was the third reading, I will take a motion to approve both those policies.
I'll make a motion to approve the third reading of policy 5402 and 5406.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, discussion. You have a fiscal year 20 budget update for us. You do.
So late in the day yesterday, I heard from the town manager, and our target has been raised from the 2.5% increase over the current year budget to a 3% increase.
And what is that figure?
It equates to $101,000.
Which still leaves us short about 230. For those of you who haven't done the math yet.
Okay, and
That one I figured out.
we had a plan if we had extra money, or not extra money, got more money in our budget, what would be coming back from the cuts?
So we're going to take a look at teaching positions next, so we'll take an examination of the need for restoration.
Can you speak up, please?
Yeah. Certainly.
I can't hear you.
Okay.
Not a word. Thank you.
We're going to take a look at the teaching positions that have been cut and other staffing positions that have been cut, and make a decision as to which of those positions would be restored. Additionally, we'll also take a look at the stipends that we're going to be withheld for next year to see if stipends can be restored at any level. But we would be looking at teaching positions first.
Madam Chair, if I may, can I make
Yes.
a couple of comments
Yes.
related to that? First of all, I did want to thank Mrs. Beardmore for providing those statistics earlier this evening. That's a great commercial for getting kids interested in French language. Having a French surname myself, I was interested in French when I was in junior high, so many years ago. And I did take 2 years of French in my junior high school years in a town not much larger than Lunenburg. Actually, I think it was a little smaller. I had 111 in my graduating class. And in high school, I wound up taking 4 years of French, or 4 years of Spanish, in addition to the 2 years of French before. I have had the great opportunity of working in France for the better part of a year, traveling back and forth between the U.S. and Lille in northern France. My French is not nearly as fluent as I would like it to have been while I was there. And I find myself struck with apprehension about potentially removing a foreign spoken language. And I understand that the numbers may absolutely support that there doesn't seem to be the interest to support that second language, at least from the incoming grades. But I would like to see us do what we can to make sure that we add, or at least maintain, another foreign language class, and perhaps the commercial from Mrs. Beardmore can get some interest from these incoming students to go into the French 1 track and get some French education. So I just toss it out there.
Can I add on to that? I was looking at some of the trends for students who started in a language and how many kept going with a language. But without giving you all of these overwhelming numbers, there's not huge differences between the languages. Once they get in, they follow it into the second, third, and when you get to the fourth year, they do drop off a bit more, but the number of students that stay with a language going into a third year is pretty equivalent across the languages. I mean, we're percentages, not numbers.
Yeah, they take the required 2 years.
But they also
Yeah.
stay in for the third, whether it's third regular or third honors. The drop-off is about equivalent between them. If you watch somebody who took French 1 in fiscal year 15, by the time you get to their third year, there was a 26% drop. The same group of students in Latin had an 18% drop, and the drop-off in Spanish was a 22% drop.
I'm just trying to recall, is that when we started our 8th grade first year of languages?
It might be, because in
And then they have to
each of
stay
those cases, there's an increase that happens at the year 2.
And then they have to
second
stay
year.
until
They have to
the
stay
third
till
year,
3.
because that was a requirement once they started taking 8th grade.
I guess my overall point is that the drops that do occur at each of those
Are
are
similar.
between the 18 to the 22 to the 26.
Yeah.
So just wanted to point that out. That's all.
So you're going to update us on that when you speak with your team to see which positions would come back?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
And so we'll know that for the next meeting?
Absolutely.
And then we'll...
You'll make a recommendation to us at that time.
I will, and at the next meeting, it's actually the public hearing on the budget.
Right.
And we don't think there'll be any more money?
No more than the 3%.
That no more.
I don't anticipate it.
So,
Perhaps, the Finance Committee said that they were meeting again, I believe, on the 28th.
The 28th is
That's when they're
Is
going to
their
make their
budget
budget.
recommendation.
Perhaps they would make a recommendation of an increase greater than 3%?
I was at the Board of Selectmen meeting last night where the audit was presented. And the way I heard the numbers, and I'd have to go back to the tape to confirm this, but it sounded like the revenues for the town were up $700,000. Expenses for the town were down $700,000. To me, that's a $1.4 million difference. That there may be some, there sounds like there could be wiggle room. I don't know. I'm not into all the other departmental budgets. I'm focused solely on this one, and hoping that we don't wind up cutting something or feel like we're shooting ourselves in the foot later. So I don't know if that's something that can be presented to FinCom. I have another commitment that evening, so I would not be able to attend. Or if it, I don't know what we can do with that information, if anything.
Superintendent has presented our budget
Right.
to FinCom already.
Yeah, so they're
just to be
aware.
clear, they have received our presentation.
Yeah.
I actually presented the original budget proposal, which is actually now a 4.2, not a 5.9% increase, and identified the needs for staff.
Is that next week? FinCom's budget?
FinCom is the 28th, next Thursday night.
Okay.
So at that point, FinCom puts forward their
Their
recommendation
recommendation.
that's taken to town meeting.
There's a meeting tomorrow, the 21st.
They're meeting
Tomorrow they have
Tomorrow, but it's, but the
fire
budget
and
recommendation is the
Okay.
28th.
Police department.
No, it's
It's not?
the PAC committee
Oh.
and I think it's financial auditing or something like that.
Yeah, I couldn't make last Thursday. Tomorrow I
The
could.
fire and police
They
were
went?
weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so just more departments.
More departments.
And then next week? is
Next
there-
week is their final budget presentation.
Okay. what they're going to recommend.
28th, what they're going to recommend. to
Based on their,
town
the people who
meeting.
presented to them.
Right.
And as I understand it, just for anybody who's a math whiz out there who can figure things out, amendments can be taken on the floor at town meeting. You just have to figure out where the money's coming from.
And clear
to
and
make those
concise.
adjustments. Clearly and concisely, yes.
You can make a motion for an amendment, but it's got to be approved by majority.
Right. A motion can be made,
Yeah.
but you've got to be able to identify it. You can't just say, I want another $200,000 to go to the school. You have to figure out where that $200,000 is going to come from and sell it. So if anybody has the time to look, just throwing that out there. I see a room full of people that have an interest in this topic, so as we all do.
Okay, so now we're going to the second part of public comment, which is open to the public for anything they want the school committee to.
Still a total of 3 minutes per person, 10 minutes.
Hi, I'm Rose Beardmore. I'm a junior at high school. I know that the stipends to after-school clubs and activities like that are in jeopardy in the budget. Not all of them, but some. I'm currently in the a cappella group Pulse. I've been in class plays for 2 years. I've been doing drama club productions since I was in 8th grade. I've previously been in jazz band, and I feel like these activities have really enriched my education and made my experience at this school very unique to me. And I would like to speak against those stipends being cut because I feel like they affect a lot of kids. So I'd like to know if those activities will be running next year.
Oh, okay, so superintendent just said that we were going to look at the stipends with the money that was just given to us from the town manager.
And when will we know about that?
The next meeting.
2 weeks?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Logan O'Connell. I am a junior. I appreciate the effort so far that the school has made at encouraging student participation and the active following of the budget process, but it really feels like more of a formality than anything because the resources for students about town participation, in my experience, are lacking. And in a similar vein to what Mr. Levesque said, most students wouldn't really even know the right questions to ask. As a student involved in a number of extracurriculars here, like the drama club, jazz band, the musical, gaming club, all these things which are run by a number of different teachers, I am concerned about the funding of these clubs and activities as they can't realistically run for free or without those resources going to the activities and the leaders running them. And lastly, the foreign language cuts. Money doesn't just come from thin air for these things, but outside of any requests or grievances, I just wanted to make clear that offering 2 languages doesn't measure up academically with other schools. And from a town perspective, what would be offered at Lunenburg in the budget's current state, which is largely ambiguous to the student body, is inadequate schooling, and little would stop school choicing to towns with more expansive programs. Thank you.
Good job.
Hi, my name is Brita Page Violet. I'm a junior at Lunenburg High School as well. I'm a member of our team's mock trial team, the Big Sips Little Sips mentoring program, as well as World Hunger Task Force. Like Rose and Logan, I think clubs are an essential part of my high school experience. And at Lunenburg, we're a small school. We don't always have the ability to offer a wide range of courses, especially electives. You know, for myself, I'm interested in law. Mock trial was my opportunity to be able to pursue that interest, to show colleges that that's something I'm interested in without being able to take a class here at Lunenburg. In addition, it provided me with opportunities such as being able to meet Ruth Bader Ginsburg this past fall that I would not have been able to have without the foundational understandings provided to me through mock trial.
So I just encourage you to remember that clubs allow a student's education to be far more dynamic and allow students to show colleges what their passions are if they aren't necessarily able to pursue those passions within the school day.
Thank you. I'm Kyle Weiss again. I just wanted to make clear with the 30 additional school choice kids coming in, we will not have electives for freshmen. They are gone. This year we had 2 freshmen. That's it. 2 freshmen were allowed to take electives. And they were only by mistake. In the sophomore class, it was minimal. I got into one of my electives because the teacher likes me, and she went to guidance and said, put him in. So the fact that we are adding 30 students on an already restricted electives, we are done with electives as freshmen and sophomores. Thank you.
My name's Larry O'Connell. I'm Logan's father, and I just wanted to make a few comments. Earlier tonight, some topics about the strategic plan and strategy. I will let you know I do this for a living. Any strategic plan that is not a living document linked to your current strategy is wasteful, and the taxpayers deserve better. So I would encourage the school committee and the superintendent and all the leadership structures within Lunenburg to make sure that your strategic plan is a living document and is adjusted to your current strategy. Without it, it's wasteful. It's useless. Secondarily, I heard a lot of talk about transportation budget and sports and numbers that were almost equivalent to the deficit that we're talking about for the staff. I would encourage the school committee and the superintendent to take a hard look at that. There are great things that come on sports: leadership, teamwork, competition. But I will be the first to tell you that the arts is nothing to cut. It produces an incredible amount of diversity. I could go on, but my point is, take a hard look at that. Don't just jump into it and cut another language because of low enrollment. Encourage a higher enrollment. There are things we can do other than worrying about wait times for sport busing. Thank you.
Mike Mackin, 26 Cortland Circle. First of all, I want to thank the superintendent and the committee for the good news tonight that we're getting closer to what we need. I hope that we continue to move the ball forward in that direction. So that was good news to hear tonight, and I'm glad that I came to hear it. I noticed in the superintendent's entry report that there were several times that communication was mentioned. It was mentioned as a challenge, it was mentioned as an area of improvement, and one of the takeaways in your report was that we can't have enough communication, and I absolutely agree with you. To that, it leads me to talk about the current operating protocols that limit the amount of time that public can speak. I understand it's reasonable to establish, boundaries around, the amount of time people can speak so we don't have somebody filibustering. The fact that it's completely limited to 10 minutes, I'd ask the committee to relook at. I saw at the last meeting at Town Hall that there were many people that would have spoken but did not have the opportunity to speak because there was the 3-minute limit only allowed 6 people or so to speak. I think that if we're looking for communication, one of the ways that we can do that is to ensure that people that come to these meetings will be able to have a say. To limit it and to limit the number of people that will have their say, I think goes against the goal of greater communication. And so I would respectfully ask that the school committee, as part of what was presented tonight in terms of looking at protocol, that be a protocol that you revisit. Because I think that there's another piece to this, which is because you have a right to do something, as my father said, doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. And I think it may send the wrong message to our community that has been very supportive in many ways to our schools, that we are not interested in hearing from them. And I know that may not be what the intent of the thing is. The intent, I'm sure, was to ensure an efficient meeting, and I support that as a goal. But I'd ask you again to take a look at that in order for this idea that should there be a number of people that wish to speak, that they can have an opportunity to speak. I also think that, again, it is about messaging. It's about, we want to hear from you. And so as one of the goals, that we can't have enough communication, I think it would be best that we not cut off that communication. And so I thank you for your time. And with that, I am now at 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
I'm Laura Kelly from 9 Jacob Court, and I am one of the parent representatives on the Primary School Advisory Council. So as you're going forward making budget decisions and where to allocate money, I really ask that you still place the hiring of an additional first grade teacher as one of the top priorities. My daughter's in the rather large kindergarten class this year. I've watched both the students and the teachers struggle with the large class sizes. So in the kindergarten classes, there's one main teacher with another additional support teacher, sometimes two. So I can't imagine going from 6 kindergarten classrooms with at least 2 teachers with 25 kids to 5 first grade teachers with 1 teacher in the classroom for almost 30 kids. So it's going to affect the young kids' educations. It's overwhelming to think of such large classrooms at a time in their lives where we're trying to grasp their interest in learning without making them seem like they're lost in overcrowded classrooms. Dr. Burnham, you had said earlier that the town is growing and we're seeing higher enrollment and a higher population of students with extra needs, and not having an adequate number of teachers at the elementary level is going to start a lot of these younger kids off at a disadvantage just when they're starting their education. So I just ask that you keep that first grade additional teacher as one of the top priorities. Thank you.
We still have time for one more?
Step to the table next to your one.
My name is Peter Beardmore. I live at 282 Pleasant Street in Lunenburg. I'd also like to talk about communication. Unfortunately, I walked in during the report, Mrs. Soroka, but the part that I caught, I think, partially addressed some of my criticisms that I made at the Finance Committee meeting last week. And so I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit. I think it's easy when you're in the administration or when you're on the school committee and you put out an email that says that there's a budget meeting coming up, and that everybody shows up at the budget meeting is everybody who's interested in the budget. But the fact is that we all have a lot of other things going on in our lives, and unfortunately this can't be the center of attention in most of our lives. That's what we elect you to do on our behalf. But the scenario of events that led up to 2 weeks ago when it was first made public that the French program was going to be phased out was such that it was business as usual. In fact, my understanding of the way the process went, you put together a 5.9% increased budget, then a 4.2% increased budget. All the while, the message from the town was 2.5%. And only 2 weeks ago did it become public that the French program was going to be phased out. Now, I may be misunderstanding that, and if I am, I apologize. But I'm reminded of an incident that we went through about a year ago with the memorial walls, where we made a policy, the meetings were advertised, they were lightly attended, but when a decision was made that ultimately cut to the bone and affected a lot of people individually in an emotional way, naturally they wanted to be involved in that discussion, but it was too late, it was too far down the road. And I think that that's exactly what happened here, frankly. I think that this is a decision about cuts that were being considered that could have been discussed more openly, earlier, to get the real facts out and the real impacts of those decisions out in an earlier time frame, such that we can make a clear recommendation, the school committee can make a clear, open-eyes recommendation to the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee put a budget on the warrant that reflected community input specifically about these deep emotional cuts. And so, back to the topic of communication, I think that there has to be a way for us, for you, as a school committee and as an administration, to red flag big issues that are going to have a severe impact, an acute impact on people's lives. I want to make one last comment. I've got a long list of things that I could ask about things that have been added or subtracted or recommended have been added. But the superintendent said twice in the last 2 public meetings that there was a lot of misinformation that was being kicked about. And obviously we want to eliminate misinformation as much as possible. But then she went on to say that students currently taking French will not be impacted by the proposed cuts. And in my view, that is a misleading statement. Because first of all, the students who are currently in 8th grade who are taking French will not have the opportunity to take 5 years of a language, because French will not be offered to them going forward, as I understand the current budget as it stands today at the 2.5%. It also impacts students who may not be taking French, but were unable to take French this year because of a scheduling conflict. And that's a real common thing at Lunenburg High School, right? You can't take a class because you want to take band, and French 2 or 3 is offered at the same time as band. So you say, I'm going to go take Latin for a year or Spanish 1, see what that's like, and then come back to French. And that does happen frequently with all the languages in Lunenburg High School. And I don't think that the impact on those students has been fully vetted. Or if it has, it certainly hasn't been discussed publicly. So those 2 issues, I think, deserve a discussion. Anyway, those are my comments. Thank you very much for your time.
And now we're going on to reports. Charter review. Jim?
Oh, charter review. After marathon meetings and public hearings, so we completed the public hearing piece. We have a completed document that has been provided to Town Council. Town Council has signed off on the legality of the language, and the chair is working with our land use director on crafting the warrants for the town meeting article to be discussed Saturday, the 4th, starting at 9 a.m. At the high school. So we're very close to doing that, completing that. I believe there's one other meeting on the 10th
of April.
10th of April, yes. And find that exact information. So it's. When I get rid of this red folder, my other folders collapse. Apologies. So, so there's a meeting on the 10th of April. That's the last meeting that is scheduled relative to charter review. Athletic advisory, we did not have a quorum to have our meeting last month, at the beginning of the month, because of the champion hockey players playing. So we are resuming, hopefully, the first Tuesday of April at 6:30, I believe.
Typically 6:30.
Yes, typically 6:30. I have too many things on my calendar, so I couldn't tell you that. Yes, typically at 6:30 in this room. All are invited.
Okay. FinCom. We were there.
I think we pretty well have been through FinCom, but the continued departmental budget presentations. Dr. Burnham presented on the 14th.
She did an exceptional job, too.
Did a very good job.
She did.
And covered how the budget was created in a collaborative manner. And clearly you could tell that they understood that we don't have enough money.
Yeah.
And at the end of the meeting, the town manager once again stated some additional funding would go to schools, which in fact it has. And the next meeting is tomorrow evening, and that would be the PAC group, more department meetings. And then the following week on the 28th is when the entire town budget will be presented.
Okay.
28th. And that will begin at 6:30.
6:30, early.
And Terry sent out the agenda today, and the chairman says that if you want to get appropriate cookies, you must attend early.
Oh, I better get there early.
So So that was the word on the meeting on the 28th.
Okay.
The Blizzard Bag Advisory Meeting, we were asked to contact other districts about how they handle sticky issues having to do with blizzard bags. So we contacted Burlington, Wakefield, Melrose, North Middlesex, and Ludlow. And those exact results, you have a document.
Okay.
Things like, nobody had anything to offer on cafeteria workers,
Right.
like what happened to the cafeteria
Well, the
workers.
secretaries.
Secretaries, they did have stuff to
Okay.
offer. That's in there. But the only place that had a plan was, I forget which school it was, but their cafeteria workers are outsourced, so it's not their problem.
Right,
That was their
okay.
plan.
That's nice.
So,
North Middlesex.
Yeah. Oh, is that
that-
North Middlesex?
is that North Middlesex?
Yeah.
So there was,
It's an awesome
but there were definite plans for other pieces. However, things like the support staff and the therapists and the nurses, and there are some good suggestions as to how that would work out on a blizzard bad day. However, we did talk about there would be a great impact on the administrative staff, because they would have to oversee the assignments and make sure the assignments were appropriate. And to be perfectly honest, I think what we need to do is put this on an agenda to talk about and vote about after the budget is settled, because if we end up with no department heads and the administrators are picking up that stuff, that has to be considered, and that needs to be a piece of this whole discussion.
Okay.
So, although I don't think, and Jessica, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we thought that we should put it off, but we definitely thought that the administrators would be getting the lion's share of the work on this.
Okay.
And in this budget conversation,
Right.
I think it just makes sense to
To
put it
hold
on an agenda after the budget is in fact settled.
Okay. So after it's voted on at town meeting?
Well, that's what
Yeah.
because anything we have to do, if we decided to pilot it next year, we certainly could do that from a May
From
meeting.
June, yeah.
Yeah, a June meeting.
Yeah.
That,
Okay,
I don't think that's an issue.
okay, so we'll, okay. Wendy, Wellness Advisory, did you have a meeting?
We did. So two major things going on there. Finally finished up a survey of students. So they're surveying middle school students just regarding overall wellness habits for everything from nutrition and sleep to body image to, knowledge and use of drugs and alcohol, just the whole gamut that wellness for a teen encompasses. So that is finally finished up. So that will be taking the next steps to be able to administer that. Still haven't gotten a lot of clarity about how the data would be used. So gathering data, but still determining what would we do with this. And then also working with our district-wide cafeteria manager in an online forum regarding nutrition and our cafeterias offerings. So just able to give some feedback around that.
Oh, policy subcommittee. Well, we read some of the policies, and we have more next meeting.
So two were passed tonight, and then we meet again next Monday.
And we meet again, but there'll be two more
Yes.
new ones in the next meeting.
Okay.
And we may meet on Monday. PTO, Meredith?
PTO, it was the same night as the caucus.
Oh, okay.
But I can...
Really? It was the same night as caucus?
Yeah.
Is that why we didn't have?
Is that why?
Another
No,
night?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's exactly it.
But I pulled up the flyer for the Parents' Night Trivia. I ordered my tickets, so I'm all set to go on Saturday, April 6th.
Oh, I better go pick it.
7 to 11, $25 a person. It's at Townsend Ridge Country Club. Trivia hosted by Stump Trivia. So you can either bring your team together or create one.
Is that the
with some
same
new
one they've
friends.
been using?
Stump is
Stump
the,
is the same?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But those tickets, if you go to the PTO, Lunenburg.org, you can
Okay.
click on order your tickets right there.
School councils, have they met?
The Turkey Hill group met yesterday, and there was a lot of excitement about the literacy task force. They're very excited about starting work on getting the literacy program to melt smoothly between both of those buildings and getting started on Reader's Workshop. So that was very positive. They are doing a fundraiser for Kylie's Care Kits, April 1st. They're doing a job-a-thon thing to raise money, and they're still looking for one more bicycle for a prize.
Two?
So-
Two? They're looking for two?
Well, they said Walmart was going to do one most likely.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it?
And no, the Lions Club.
Oh, yeah, I've got a
And the
line.
Lions Club did one.
All right.
And I emailed that BNI, so I'm just waiting. to hear.
So we're waiting, so there's one more. They're waiting, though, to get the bicycles so they know who the winners are, so they can be the appropriate size and type for the
Okay.
child that
All right.
wins. So that was part of the conversation, and there was some concern over a possible change in the Title I distribution there, and that the direct service reading teacher would perhaps not be direct serving next year because of the loss of Title I funds
That we anticipate.
that we anticipate. So I would be remiss if I did not bring that forward.
The high school met at the end of February, so this is a little bit...
We didn't have time for...
Yeah, I know, yeah. But most of the things have been covered in other ways, so I won't rehash all of that. But one piece that I hadn't brought up to you guys that they had started discussing was potentially changing, it's just all discussion right now, the 4-year math requirement to a 3-year math requirement. When I first heard that news, I'm like, that sounds not good, because everyone should take 4 years because they have things to do. And when they looked at other schools and saw what they were requiring and what actually occurred, students who are trending toward a university know that universities want to see those 4 years. So most students go ahead and take the 4 years even if they're not required. Where it benefits some students is those that are not headed toward that 4-year university. They have other plans for their post-high school piece, or students who struggle with math, don't do so well in math, and need time to take an additional course that wouldn't count to the 4 years that are required, or they would have to double up at some point. So, wanted to let you guys know that that is in discussion. We looked at Oakmont, Wachusett, Shrewsbury, Clinton, Westboro, and Murdoch.
Is this a task force?
No, this is within department discussion. I actually had a meeting with Mr. McGrath and the department head for math this week, and they would like to come forward and present to you. Given that the budget hearing is the next meeting, I think perhaps the April 24th meeting might be a possibility.
And when would this transition take place? Next school year?
We talked a little bit about that, and it'll be part of the presentation.
Okay.
Oakmont requires 3 years. They're on a 4x4 block, so students can take 2 math courses a year, so they've solved that. Wachusett's a 3-year requirement, but they're looking to make it 4. Shrewsbury has a 3-year requirement, Clinton 3 years, Westboro 3 years, and Murdoch 3 years. I would say in Clinton, 100% take a 4th year in math, they found. And in Shrewsbury, nearly 100% take 4 years of math. It's just not required
To graduate.
But most do.
So the conversation is that 4 years of math would still be required. Every student would take 4 years of math. You only have to pass 3 and get credits from 3. So that allows students to, who struggle with math. They're already struggling with math. They failed it once, and now they would have to double up in order to get their math credits to graduate. So you take a struggling student.
And tell them to take twice as much
I
math.
know.
Right.
I know.
So
I know
this-
some of them.
This just affords the school some flexibility to meet the needs of struggling learners.
I'm going to withhold comment until I see the presentation with the details.
Yeah, from the department.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds a little off to me.
I looked at the high school math. I was going to be a music teacher, and it was either calculus or music theory. I couldn't read music. Some people don't need 4 years.
So primary school, I do.
You do?
So the primary school met last week. Also, at this moment, still discussing everything from, still waiting on any sort of announcement regarding the principal search, as well as looking at their school, beginnings of their school improvement plan. And there was mostly also just a check-in with all the different grades as to goings on for the spring.
I have not been to a middle school meeting, so I don't know that one has been scheduled.
It's next week.
It's next week? Okay. Would you forward me? We'll talk later, I'll get today. Because it's somehow not on my calendar, so that's why I've been missing it.
Just lots of kids.
And the Blizzard days.
Yeah. Capital planning is on hiatus.
We'll have a seat up here.
We're on hiatus. So topics for future discussion are the
Blizzard bags.
Blizzard bags. Well, that's June.
But
That's way off.
That's off.
So the entry findings, the school committee goal, but we're going to find a date for a workshop in regards to that.
The protocols or the goals?
So evaluating,
Yes, the
because that was
goals.
that was
That's
part of
Goals and
our...
protocols,
That's
right.
all the goals. So that will be at the workshop.
I got there.
We have, Meredith, remind me what it
The
is.
Fund Our Future resolution.
Resolution, fund our future resolution.
Budget update.
That's the whole presentation is next time.
So the Fund Our Future, is that the part of this Friday?
That's one.
At the
That's
State
one,
House?
that's not really.
It's not related to that, but the Promise Act is part of that discussion.
Yeah.
Which is the Fund Our Future.
Right, so this is
Promise
where
Act,
we're
Cherish
trying to
Act.
make the connection here.
Yeah.
But we don't need to have a resolution to provide to
No.
the superintendent by Friday.
No.
That's what I'm confirming. Okay, thank you.
So we'll put those all on the agenda, on future agendas. And the school council trip
Yes.
is on the second one in April. And that is it. So I'll take a motion.
Motion to adjourn 9:23 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.